Many moons ago, there was a store called Borders. Now, I often ask when I talk to students, do you remember what Borders was? And usually the answer is no. And then I have to tell them that Borders was a bookstore. But then I also have to ask, do you remember what a bookstore was, right? The reason why Borders went broke, why Sam Goody went broke, while maybe a hardware store or local business in your town closed down, is an idea called the long tail. Now, this idea was first shared by Chris Anderson, a futurist, editor of Wired magazine, and the long tail basically says that there are riches in niches. The more specific we are, the easier it is to stand out. Now, if I'm Borders, if I'm a bookstore, if I'm a hardware store, if I'm any physical location, the truth of the matter is there's about 20% of my products right here that most people want. So when I walk into a hardware store, right, I expect to find a hammer. I expect to find a nail. So there's a few products that sell a lot of things. Of course, there's a lot of products that sell just a few things, right? So if I'm trying to find a railroad tie, I probably can't walk into my local hardware store and buy it. If I'm Borders, if I'm the bookstore, I'm gonna carry the dictionary and the Bible and the Alchemist, maybe 50 Shades of Grey, Harry Potter, whatever it is, because people are gonna buy those. They're gonna walk in and buy lots of those copies. But what about way out here? What about the Travel Hacking Guide to Norway that sold 10 copies, right? Like that's way out here. No Borders store, no bookstore is gonna carry my little book that no one's buying, right? Because they have a limited amount of shelf space. So a physical retail store, they have to decide what products am I gonna carry? Because they wanna carry the things that are most popular. But if you are a local indie band in a small town, if you're writing a book, if you're creating a movie in Millbank, South Dakota, there is a small, weird audience that wants to see that. And fortunately for you, we now have the internet to help us distribute those items. So the unfair advantage that online stores have to a physical location is that they can carry all of this random stuff that very few people want because they're not limited by shelf space. What's fascinating is that being specific, being in this little niche out here, if I'm a book or an indie band or a movie, is that it's actually gonna be easier to show up on something like Google than if I'm trying to be just a general book or a general musician, right? And so instead of trying to be a shoe store selling shoes online, which no one will find, I maybe focus on being a yoga shoe store for people who overpronate, right? So I'm adding in adjectives. I'm basically becoming more specific and narrowing in on who my audience is. Those weird people who are into the same music or the same reading or the same content, whatever it might be, as you are. So what we're gonna work on as we build our portfolio is helping you embrace your weirdness and stand out by finding your specific audience, thinking about the long tail. So let's go.